Long after the pharaohs vanished, something deeper stayed hidden, beneath the sand. Welcome to Echo Slumber. I am your host, Arlen Graves. Drop a comment. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Your voices turn dust into story. Let's begin. Beneath the golden veil of shifting desert winds, there lies an Egypt few speak of, an Egypt whispered about in half-forgotten scrolls, and etched in the fading breath of stone swallowed by sand. Before pyramids pierced the sky and pharaohs claimed the sun, something older stirred in the hush of the Nile's twilight. Something ancient, something hidden. Temples erased, names smoothed from walls, maps burned in quiet corners of the world. But the dunes, patient and eternal, remember. And so do we. And we carry this remembering with gentleness, as if cradling a secret. If you're here listening, know this. We truly love and care for you. You belong here, in the soft glow of wonder and the hush of unraveling history. Before we begin the story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now grab your coffee and let's get started. Time, in Egypt, does not tick, it sifts. A slow cascade of silence across centuries, grain by golden grain. The wind moves it like breath, never rushed, never loud, covering the world in soft forgetfulness. Here, time is not counted by hours, but by how deep a doorway sleeps, how much of a statue's face remains, how long a city lies beneath the hush. The desert is not cruel. It does not destroy. It hides things in plain sight, swaddling them like ancient infants, waiting for the right eyes to find them again. And it remembers what we forget. There was once a road here. Now it is nothing but ripple. There was once a city, not a grand one, not the kind in textbooks, but real, lived in. Cracked pots, sandals worn thin, reeds woven into baskets, and above it, what looked like a natural rise in the sand. But it wasn't. It was a roof. And beneath it, rooms, stairs, stone pillars so finely carved, they still held their edge. No one spoke the city's name for 3,000 years. No one had to. The wind did. The dunes whispered it back and forth at night, like a secret passed between old friends. Archaeologists who walked past it for decades thought it was just landscape. A wave in the desert, nothing more. Until one storm blew strange, and something blinked up from the sand. A sliver of wall, a carving of a bird, a doorway with no house. They called it the Lost City of the Workers at first, near Luxor, Deir el-Medina's cousin. But the deeper they dug, the older it became. Older than tombs, older than dynasties. It didn't fit. The tools found there were simple, but shaped in ways that puzzled even seasoned eyes. Symbols that resembled hieroglyphs but weren't. Stones aligned not north-south, but to something else. To something that didn't rise anymore in the night sky. There was no gold, no mummies, no royal seals, only bread ovens, worn seats, a cracked game board carved into stone, as if someone once sat beneath that arch and played for hours while the Nile sang below. These were not pharaohs. These were people, mothers, carpenters, daughters with stories that no scribe ever wrote down. And yet, the city was perfectly designed. Aligned with the sun at equinox. Built to breathe with the wind, with walls curved to resist heat. Water channels ran beneath the homes, not primitive, purposeful. It was as though they knew things we no longer ask. It made some uneasy, not because it was grand, but because it was quiet, unrecorded, but there. As if Egypt had other beginnings it chose not to remember out loud. A fragment of a woven shoe was found in one corner, preserved like paper. A note was carved beside it, in a tongue no one could decipher. Soft loops, dots like stars. Not instructions, not royal decrees. Something more like poetry. To walk is to remember, to sit is to forget. Beneath the sand, we are safe. The archaeologists stood in silence. This wasn't a city built for show. It was a city built to vanish. A sanctuary, maybe. Or something older still. Something from a time when humans still trusted the sand to guard their stories. And it did, for thousands of years. Because here in Egypt, history doesn't end. It waits. And as the winds cover new clues each night, smoothing footprints, folding stories back into the dunes, we remember something important. That the world we see is only the surface. Beneath us, always, something is dreaming. And the sand remembers your steps, even when you don't. Let that thought carry you gently now, into stillness, into sleep. The Nile is a spine, a long, elegant line down Egypt's back. The river that nourishes, remembers, and never truly rests. It is the mother of the land, the dreamer of crops, the painter of green, where there should only be gold. But once the Nile did not flow as it does now. Long ago, before pyramids, before kingdoms, before names, the river moved sideways. It shifted, swerved, split, like a snake dreaming in its sleep, adjusting its coils to a rhythm we no longer understand. We think of rivers as fixed things, etched into geography. But the Nile is not a line, it is a memory, and memory can drift. Satellite scans, strange glowing maps from the sky, have revealed ancient riverbeds hidden beneath the sands. Not dry channels, but ghosts of water. Whole branches of the Nile, now buried, that once laced across the desert, like veins beneath skin. Some run parallel to the modern Nile, others cross it. One bends like a crescent near present-day Fayoum, another loops like a thread unravelling toward the Libyan border. This forgotten flow carried life with it. Where water runs, so do stories. And they did. Prehistoric tribes followed these winding waters, settling where the banks curved sweetly, and the reeds sang. They built no temples, no cities, but they left behind shadows, traces of hearths, ashes from campfires, bits of bone and shell, gently sleeping under modern farmland. They did not carve their names into stone, but their echoes hum beneath the dust, near the floodplain, in places where no one expected them to be. Their homes were woven reed shelters, their language likely never written down, but they painted, on rocks, on bone, on the walls of caves now sunken beneath silt. One figure, drawn in red ochre, shows a man standing beneath a crescent moon, arms raised not in fear, but in greeting, to the river, to the night, to the thing that gave and took everything. We know little about them, but we know this. They followed the Nile's sideways path. They knew her moods, her detours. They believed the river chose her course not by accident, but by wisdom. When the river changed direction, and it did, again and again, they didn't resist. They followed, they uprooted, they listened. Can you imagine that? A civilization that trusted water more than walls? They left no pyramids behind, but they left seeds, sorghum, emmer wheat, lentils curled into clay pots. The beginnings of farming slept here, not in Mesopotamia, as we once believed, but along a crooked branch of the Nile, long buried. This was the Green Sahara period, when the desert bloomed with life, and herds of elephants wandered through the dunes. Rain fell. Trees stood tall near Cargo Oasis. The Sahara was not always empty. It was once a garden. And then, the rain stopped. The sky forgot how to weep, and the river, as she always does, adapted. The Nile tilted. Her channels narrowed. She abandoned the paths that no longer fed her. Slowly, she carved a new spine. The one we know now. And the people who once followed her sideways journey? Some stayed. Their bones are found in shallow graves, curled beside tools and beads as if sleeping. Others vanished, not from death, but from story. They became the blanks between chapters, the silence between dynasties, yet their presence lingers. In 2021, archaeologists found polished tools, knives made of stone so finely honed they glinted like glass, beneath layers of silt in a now dry channel near Aswan. Dated to 8,000 years ago, no known culture matched them. When asked who these people were, one researcher said quietly, "We don't have their name." But the river knew them. Tonight, we drift with them. We walk beside their reed baskets. We hear the slap of fish in nets. We watch the river run not north but sideways, guiding them toward new floodplains, new songs. Because history is not just pyramids and crowns. Sometimes it's the way water moves, and sometimes it's the people wise enough to follow it. As you rest now, think of that river, slow, gentle, curving beneath a moonlit sky, and the hands that once reached towards it in greeting. Let it carry you sideways into sleep, before the stone crowns, before the temples, before Egypt had even found her name. There were the bones, not buried in grandeur, not sealed behind golden doors, but cradled beneath the open sky, beneath wild lotus blooms, where dragonflies danced and the air smelled faintly of water and dust. Here in these early graves, death was not a monument, it was a whisper, a return, a soft folding back into the earth. Long before dynasties sang their names into eternity, people lived along the riverbanks, in quiet clusters. They farmed, they wandered, they loved, and when one of their own slipped into the stillness beyond breath, they buried them with care. Not in chaos, in rows. Some faced east toward the dawn, others curled like sleeping children, knees drawn to chest, arms tucked in close, as if dreaming. It was not a random silence, but an intentional hush, as if they believed death was not an ending, but a place of stillness we all must enter gently. These burials were found near modern-day Badari, Nakada, and along the desert's edge, and they tell a story older than kings. Some were wrapped in reed mats, others lay beneath woven canopies that time has since unravelled. Near one set of bones, archaeologists found a carved ivory comb, shaped like a lotus flower in bloom. It lay beside the skull as if placed with tenderness. What did it mean? Was it for grooming the soul? A symbol of purity? A gift from a child to a mother who would never wake again? No one can say, but the care is unmistakable. Another grave held a clay jar, still sealed. Inside they found dried seeds, traces of honey, and the softened remnants of herbs. Food for the journey perhaps, or offerings to the unknown. And in the graves of children, yes, even then they lost children, small toys were found. Beads, a doll carved from bone, a tiny flute made from a bird's wing. Even the smallest lives were honoured. These people did not build pyramids, but they believed in memory. They left behind no written words, but their arrangements, their offerings, their stillness, all speak fluently. They speak of a people who saw death not as absence, but as continuation, as reunion, as passage. The lotus flower was sacred long before it was etched onto tomb walls. It grew from the mud, bloomed in the morning light, then folded again at dusk. Life, death, life again. It's no surprise they buried their dead beneath lotus fields, because here, even in the hush of the grave, they planted the idea that beauty rises again. One burial site, dated to over 6,000 years ago, revealed something strange. Dozens of graves laid out in careful patterns, but one was different. A man, buried standing, his arms crossed, his feet pressed into the floor of the grave. No objects, no jars, no mat, just him, upright, facing west. Why? Was he a watcher, a guardian, a warning? Or did he choose to remain standing, as if unwilling to lie down before his journey began? There is no answer, only bone, only dust, only the soft certainty that someone once cared. Another skeleton, found curled tightly in the fetal position, wore a necklace of desert glass, green transparent, formed from ancient impacts, or lightning strikes in the sand. Rare, mysterious, almost otherworldly. To bury someone with such a thing meant love, or reverence, or awe. Imagine it now, the hush of twilight, a group gathered silently, the air still, the body laid down gently, the necklace placed with trembling hands, the wind catching the edge of the mat as the sand is brushed over it. No sound but breath, no farewell but touch, no monument but memory. And still, the bones remain. They have waited patiently beneath millennia of dust and dream. When the archaeologists unearth them, they often pause, They do not rush. They kneel slowly, aware that they're entering someone's final sleep. They do not ask questions loudly. They listen, and the bones tell them, "We were here. We loved. We suffered. We believed in something larger than silence." And maybe, so do you. As you drift now into your own soft darkness, imagine the lotus fields swaying gently in the night breeze. Imagine the river murmuring nearby. Imagine lives once lived, unknown to history but full of feeling. They may not be in the storybooks, but they are not forgotten. And neither are you. The sea keeps secrets differently than the sand. Sand buries gently, curling around what was. But the sea takes. It wraps cities in salt and silence, folds them into its tides, and rocks them to sleep for centuries. Such was the fate of Heracleion. Not a myth, not a fable, a real city, once vibrant, now drowned. Before Alexandria shimmered on the coast, Heracleion stood proud, Egypt's gateway to the Mediterranean. Ships from all corners of the known world once docked at her harbours. Greek sailors, Phoenician traders, Egyptian priests in linen robes. Here cultures met, languages collided, offerings to gods were tossed into the water, where they sank slowly and stayed. Today, the city sleeps 30 feet beneath the sea, off the coast of modern-day Abu Qir, discovered not through legend, but through accident. A diver, searching for wreckage, brushed against a carved pillar, not part of a ship, but part of a temple. Then more, statues with frozen eyes, doorways rising from the seafloor, courtyards cracked open like memories. For centuries, Heracleion had been spoken of in half-remembered texts. Ancient scribes mentioned it as a place of great ritual, where pharaohs met foreign gods, and Hercules was worshipped in Egyptian form. But no one could find it, because it was beneath, submerged slowly by earthquake, flood, and the creeping hunger of the sea. A city that didn't fall in flames, but one that slipped quietly beneath the surface, taking its stories with it. Now archaeologists in wetsuits float where merchants once walked. They move through underwater plazas with torches of light instead of fire. They read inscriptions in the hush of currents. They gather objects from seabeds that haven't felt human hands in 2,000 years. Among the most haunting discoveries, a colossal statue of a god, half buried in silt. His face is serene, lips parted, as if still blessing the city that sank around him. Nearby, a temple dedicated to the goddess Isis, its columns tilted but intact, and inside a chamber, they found something stranger, a wooden sarcophagus, sealed tight, remarkably preserved by the mud, with gold leaf still clinging to its corners. No one knows how it got there. Burials didn't belong in ports, but there it was, as if someone long ago had tried to take something sacred away by ship and never made it. There are marketplaces still visible, their stalls outlined by the remains of walls. Clay jars lie toppled, bronze coins still shimmer beneath layers of algae, and scattered throughout the ruins, anchors, dozens of them, dropped in desperation perhaps, as ships tried to stay tethered while the city disappeared beneath the waves. Can you imagine it? The sea rising, walls trembling, the cries of traders mixing with the roar of water, a temple bell ringing one final time before being swallowed. And then, quiet. Just the hush of tides over rooftops, just the sea exhaling. What caused Heracleon's fall? No one knows for certain. Some say it was liquefaction, when the soil, saturated with water, turns to slurry and can no longer hold weight. Others speak of a massive quake that fractured the delta. But beneath every theory lies a soft truth. Even cities can be forgotten. Even greatness can sink. Yet Heracleion did not vanish. It simply waited. Waited beneath the blue-green silence. Waited for someone to remember its name. And now, gently, its streets are surfacing again, not in full but in pieces. Shards, shapes, echoes. Divers say there is a feeling down there, a pressure. Not just of depth, but of memory. as if the city is still listening, as if it knows we've returned. Tonight, as you breathe slow and steady, picture the moon above water. Picture the currents sweeping over tiled floors. Picture a marketplace, held in a long exhale. Somewhere beneath the sea, a city sleeps, and it is dreaming of light again. There are places where the stone speaks, and there are places where it only listens. In the desert west of Luxor, beyond the familiar path of tourists and textbooks, there are structures that rise from the rock, like echoes, too precise to be natural, too empty to be fully known. Temples, or at least that's what we call them. But they have no names, no cartouches, no prayers to Ra, no tributes to Osiris or Horus, no pharaoh's boast etched in hieroglyphs. Just smooth, cool stone, cut with a mastery that suggests purpose, yet offers none. These are not ruined temples, they are silent ones, perfectly aligned corridors. Walls that do not crumble, slabs that seem fused, not stacked, and entrances that open into chambers too symmetrical to be accidental, yet too blank to tell a story. No paint, no carvings, no offerings, only the wind threading through doorways. The first was found half buried in the 1930s by local nomads. At first it was thought to be part of a hill, but beneath the dust, geometric precision emerged. Right angles where there should have been curves, platforms where nature builds none. And then, stairs. Stairs that led down, not into a tomb, but into a room. A room with no altar, no sarcophagus, just a smooth basin at its centre, as if water once lived there, or light. Archaeologists have since found others, scattered across the desert like forgotten punctuation marks. Some just walls, some deep underground. One, half collapsed, held a hollow shaft that descended over 60 feet, straight through the rock, without deviation. Not a burial shaft, no body found, just the echo of wind moving through stone. What were they? Observatories, some suggest. The alignment with celestial patterns is uncanny. On solstice mornings, light slices down narrow corridors and lands on blank walls, as if illuminating something that once was there, or something never meant to be seen with the eyes. Others argue they were purification centres, or sanctuaries, for a priesthood whose gods were never recorded. A forgotten sect, a lost theology, something before. But none of the theories fit cleanly. One structure, located near Gebel el-Silsila, has interior surfaces polished to a mirror finish, and yet nowhere to sit, nowhere to kneel, nowhere to speak. It's as if it was not meant for people at all, or not for people as we know them. Even stranger, no tools have been found, no copper chisels, no debris, just the completed halls and the desert reclaiming them grain by grain. One wall, when scanned with penetrating radar, revealed a series of hollow pockets behind it, almost like cavities in a lung. When drilled into gently, they found nothing, empty space, but the stone around it hummed faintly, as if tuned to a frequency long since lost. Visitors, why few as they are, often report a sensation upon entering. Not fear, not awe, but remembrance, a feeling like déjà vu, as if the walls remember you before you arrive, as if the silence has been waiting for your footsteps. Could these be older than dynastic Egypt? Some scholars believe they predate hieroglyphs, that they come from a time before language could be fixed in ink, a time when knowledge was passed not in scrolls, but in stone, in form. But why the erasure? If these were holy places, where are the priests? If they were royal, where are the names? If they were schools, where are the students? Maybe they were built to be blank. Maybe they were meant to exist outside of history. Or maybe the names were never removed, because they were never written to begin with. The desert, of course, offers no explanation, only heat, only stillness, only the slow erosion of curiosity into awe. There is a thought barely whispered among those who have studied the temples closely that they were not built for worship at all, that they were machines, not of metal and steam, but of harmony and precision. Instruments carved from bedrock, not to move things, but to tune something. Perhaps the land, perhaps the mind, perhaps the sky. It sounds like fantasy, and yet, when standing inside the central chamber of one such structure, the quiet is different. It is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of intention, and the stone seems to sigh, as if it knows we are listening, but not yet hearing, and maybe we aren't meant to, not yet. Tonight, close your eyes and picture it, a desert, still, endless, and there, a shape, half swallowed by sand, glowing faintly in moonlight. No door guards it, no words explain it, just stone, and silence, and the breath of something we cannot name. Let it settle in your chest now, like the hush before a revelation. Let the unknown rest with you. Let it become part of your dreaming. Because not all temples are made for gods. Some are made for questions. Look up. Even now, through clouds, through city haze, the stars still hang in their quiet positions, waiting for us to remember how to read them. But long before telescopes and textbooks, the people of Egypt were already reading, already watching, already drawing the sky with care and reverence, not on parchment, but on stone. Not for study, but for memory, and not always with stars we know. Deep within forgotten tombs, the ones left untouched for millennia, archaeologists have found maps of the heavens, painted or etched across ceilings like whispers to the cosmos. Some depict constellations we still name today: Orion, the Big Dipper, Sirius glowing like a blue flame. But others remain unidentified. Curved patterns, spirals, clusters that don't match our modern sky. They shine above scenes of boats sailing not through water, but through space. Gods with animal heads navigating the underworld above, not below. Were these maps of the night sky, or of something else? In the tomb of Senenmut, advisor to Queen Hatshepsut, there is a ceiling painted in deep blue, dotted with gold. A zodiac unlike the ones we know, where time is not measured by months but by journeys. Venus is there, Jupiter too, but their positions defy what we'd expect. One scholar said it looked like a memory, not a chart. Perhaps they weren't mapping the heavens above them, but recording the sky as it once was, or as it will be again. Because for the ancient Egyptians, time was never a straight road. It was a circle, a loop, a wheel turning gently across centuries. What was will be. What will be already was. So maybe those unfamiliar constellations aren't imaginary. Maybe they belong to a sky we have forgotten, or a sky that hasn't yet returned. In tombs near Dendera, a stone disc was found with stars arranged in concentric rings. No cardinal directions. No horizon, just cycles. Some believe it's a map of precession, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis over thousands of years. As if someone long ago understood celestial mechanics were only beginning to measure again. And beneath these maps, beneath the star, are the sleeping dead. Not kings always, not queens, but priests, scribes, astronomers, people who looked up night after night and saw not mystery, but pattern. One priest, buried with a curved ivory wand, was laid beneath a ceiling, painted with 7 stars in a perfect arc. No labels, just a faint line connecting them. Alongside his body, a scroll of prayers to Sopdet, the star we call Sirius. He wasn't asking for guidance, he was remembering. There is evidence that certain stars were believed to be souls, not of the dead, but of the unborn. That the sky was a waiting room for lives yet to come. And to look up was to look forward, not back. The ceilings of tombs weren't painted for the living. They were maps for the return, and they were stories. Because for the Egyptians, stars weren't just lights. They were words, verses, footnotes in the great poem of time. Some tombs show the goddess Nut stretched across the ceiling, arms and legs touching the 4 corners of the earth. Her body arched like the dome of night. She swallowed the sun each evening, and birthed it anew each dawn. Within her skin, stars countless and quiet. To be buried beneath her was not to be lost, it was to be carried. When archaeologists lie on their backs in those tombs, they often fall silent. Not from superstition, but from a kind of reverence. Because the ceilings feel alive, not decorative, but intentional. Like being inside a story that no longer has pages, only light. And when the lights go out, and only torch flicker remains, the stars on the ceiling seem to move. Like they're still guiding someone home. Some researchers now believe the Egyptians used these celestial maps for more than burial, that they aligned tombs with stars, that they timed rituals with conjunctions and eclipses, that some monuments, even pyramids, were built to echo the sky's great geometry. Above, a constellation. Below, a temple. Between, the soul. Tonight, think of this. You are lying beneath a sky that someone, long ago, etched into stone. You are breathing air once shared by stargazers who thought each light was a message. You are part of a map, whether you know it or not. So close your eyes. Let the constellations you've never seen drift across your thoughts. Let their old names brush gently past your heart. And remember, not all stars are meant to shine forever. Some are meant to return, just like you. In Egypt, forgetting was once a kind of death. Not the quiet passing of breath, but something colder. To be chiseled out of memory, scraped from stone, unnamed in eternity. And yet, the woman we remember tonight, the one whose face was erased, ruled with a grace so undeniable that not even silence could bury her completely. Her name was Hatshepsut. She was not meant to be pharaoh. She was not the son of a king. She was a daughter, a wife, a stepmother. And then, remarkably, she became ruler in her own right. Not as a regent, not as a shadow, but as pharaoh. And not in disguise, not quietly. She wore the false beard, the striped crown, the linen of kings. She built monuments, launched expeditions, filled temples with gold and frankincense from lands beyond Egypt's southern reach. Her reign was peaceful, prosperous, long. And then after her death, something changed. Her statues were broken, her name scratched out, her image chipped from walls like bark peeled from a tree. Not everywhere, but enough to make her vanish from a public story. Who did it? Most believe it was Thutmose III, her stepson, once too young to rule, later a brilliant general. Some say he erased her in revenge. Others think it was political, an attempt to preserve the illusion that Egypt had never been ruled by a woman. Because if she could rule, others might try. And so began the Great Forgetting. But Egypt's memory is not so easily erased, because stone remembers even where chisels strike, because absence leaves shape, because to remove a name is to outline it in reverse. And Hatshepsut's legacy began to breathe again. At Deir el-Bahri, where her mortuary temple rises in terraces against the cliffs, her story still lingers in the light that touches the walls. Even where her figure was carved out, the posture remains. The elegance remains, like a perfume that stays long after the bottle is gone. Inside, faint images of her expedition to Punt survive. A mysterious land of myrrh trees, ebony, incense and giraffes. Traders stand with baskets. Ships sail full and round. A land of peace, not conquest. A vision of power that nurtured, not crushed. And though her cartouche, her royal seal, was destroyed in many places, copies survived where the chisel didn't reach, in buried texts, in forgotten corners, in the soft breath of stone. Some believe that the attempt to erase her actually preserved her, that the act of removing her name made scholars look closer, that in silence she spoke more powerfully, because forgetting is never complete, not when something was true, and Hatshepsut was true. She ruled, she built, she dreamed, and even as generations tried to fold her out of the narrative, Egypt, old patient Egypt, kept her. Today we speak her name aloud. We restore her statues. We write her story. We let the dust fall away, and still part of her remains mysterious. Her mummy was missing for years, identified only recently by a tooth, a single molar that matched a jaw in an unmarked tomb. Even her body tried to hide, but now she rests again beneath the stars she once ruled beneath. A woman who dared to wear the beard of kings, who dared to rewrite what power looked like, who was almost forgotten, but not quite. Tonight, let her story settle near you like a gentle wind. Let her erased face become clear in the dreamlight behind your eyes. Let it remind you that truth resurfaces, that silence does not erase presence, that memory, like the Nile, always finds its way back, and that even forgotten queens can rule again in our remembering. We tell the story often of the library that burned, of Alexandria and all it held, scrolls that vanished into flame, wisdom lost in smoke. But what if that was only one loss? What if there were others, older, quieter, hidden not by fire, but by dust? In the plateau of Saqqara, where step pyramids rise from golden hush, and tombs curve inward like closed hands. Some scholars believe another library once existed. Not of books, not of shelves, but of architecture, a knowledge embedded not in ink, but in stone, buried beneath the sands, beneath courtyards, beneath temples whose names we no longer speak aloud. A library not destroyed, but forgotten, and perhaps deliberately so. The Serapeum at Saqqara, long thought to be merely a burial place for sacred bulls, is one such place that whispers more than it says. Long corridors stretch deep into the earth, lined with massive sarcophagi carved from solid granite. Each weighs dozens of tons. Each sits in a chamber barely large enough to contain it. No hieroglyphs, no blessings, no stories on the walls, just silence. A silence that presses in the longer you stay. Some suggest this was not just a tomb, but a repository, that these massive granite vaults once held more than bulls, that they protected objects or records or ideas too powerful to be displayed above ground. In other parts of Saqqara, temples to Imhotep, the great architect, healer and sage, were found layered with rooms that appear not sacred, but scholarly. Benches carved into walls, basins shaped for mixing pigments, stone slabs that might have held scrolls, tablets, or instruments, and in the dust, fragments, pottery etched with formulas, bits of copper shaped like styluses, traces of ink, not enough to name a library, but enough to feel one. If it existed, it would have been older than Alexandria's flame-lit halls, older than the scrolls that drifted into the sea. A library from the time before papyrus was common, when knowledge was carved, not written, when secrets were hidden beneath the floor instead of behind doors. Some call it the House of Life, a term whispered in ancient texts, said to describe a place where healing, astronomy, mathematics, and magic were taught side by side. One inscription found near a broken well: "He who enters must know the measure of silence, for words have weight here." And in the temple of Ptah nearby, a chamber was found sealed with a strange mortar that had fused to stone. Inside, not treasure, not bodies, but slabs of limestone stacked as though once engraved, now worn blank. As if someone scraped the stories away, or as if they were never written, only remembered. There are theories, of course, that the House of Life was real, that it moved from place to place, that its libraries were never meant for the public, that its knowledge, sacred, dangerous, or both, had to be hidden beneath the living world. And what is Saqqara, if not a place that listens? Its pathways wind like sentences. Its walls echo softly, like a language we almost understand. Its tombs, even when empty, feel full. Perhaps the entire complex was once a book, its chapters spread across chambers, its pages turned by feet walking on ancient stone. A library, not built for reading with the eyes, but for feeling with the body. Some researchers have taken to mapping its geometry like grammar. They find patterns in its layout, ratios that echo the movement of planets, angles that align with solstices, staircases that descend not just into Earth, but into meaning. If true, Saqqara might have been Egypt's first great archive, not just of knowledge, but of intention, of belief, of how the world was structured, and how it might be again. And maybe that's why it was buried, not to be lost, but to be protected. Until someone learned how to read stone again. Tonight, imagine it. You step into a chamber beneath the sand. It is cool still. Your footsteps echo like punctuation. There are no lights, but you see clearly. Not with your eyes, but with your knowing. Each wall hums, each corner waits. And the dust on the floor isn't dust at all. It's the end of a sentence, waiting for the next one to begin. Maybe you've been there before, in another dream. In another life, maybe we all have. Because even buried libraries remember the hands that once turned their pages. And so do you. Sleep now, beneath that silence. Let the forgotten books of Saqqara hold your breath. Let the dust tell you what was never written. Let the library within you awaken. Or there are some dreams so large they don't fit inside the world as it is, and some truths so heavy that only the exiled are allowed to carry them. In the dusk of Egypt's golden age, when temples still echoed with prayers and the Nile still carried offerings to the gods, there lived a priest who dared to speak of a different Egypt, one that could not be seen, one that lived beneath the known. His name is lost, scraped from the temple registry, absent from surviving scrolls. He appears only in fragments, a footnote in a later scribe's margin, a whisper in an unburned papyrus, the faint memory of a trial that was never officially recorded. He claimed the gods spoke to him in fire, not metaphor, not symbol, flame. He would retreat into the deepest sanctum of the temple, and when he emerged, his eyes shone too brightly, his voice too steady. He spoke of visions, of symbols unrecorded in any scroll, of a second Egypt, buried beneath the one they walked upon. He said that under the temples, beneath the tombs, beneath even the oldest cities lay chambers of light, vaults of metal that sang. Not gold, not stone, something else, something alive with memory. He said Egypt had forgotten itself, that the pharaohs were echoes, that the gods once walked not as myths but as engineers of the world's rhythm, that the true knowledge had been locked away, on purpose. He wrote these visions down, not in one scroll but in 7, each was sealed and hidden, not in libraries but in places he called dream vaults, caves, cracks in the temple's understructure, hollows in forgotten statues. He warned his students, these are not to be read aloud. Not unless the stars agree, but the high priests were not amused. Blasphemy, they called it, to suggest the gods had designs, not just destinies, to claim the temples were not final, but surface. He was brought before the council, stripped of his linen robes and offered a choice, recant or vanish. He chose the latter. Banished to the edge of the desert, near the white cliffs, he lived in a stone shelter where the wind spoke in riddles. He kept writing. He kept dreaming. His final scroll was buried with him in a sarcophagus with no name, in a grave no wider than a man's shoulders. But a traveller centuries later, a Greek philosopher visiting the Egyptian south, wrote in his journal of a buried manuscript, one filled with symbols not of gods but of circuits, of maps that pulsed when held to the fire, of diagrams of a land beneath the Nile, not metaphorical, but mechanical. The scroll was never found again, but the idea remained. A hidden Egypt, a layered Egypt, one for the body, one for the soul, and one for the dream. Modern archaeologists dismiss these tales. No evidence, no inscriptions, but deep under Saqqara, near tunnels rarely visited, fragments of copper have been found, curled, etched, inexplicable, and deeper still, a chamber with walls blackened, not from torches, but from something hotter. Some say it was lightning, Others say it was something older, a flare of forgotten knowledge. Tonight, close your eyes. Imagine a man in a linen robe, eyes wide with firelight, carving with trembling hands, the memory of a vision, too vast to explain. Not seeking fame, not defying gods, only trying to remember. A priest who dreamed too far, and in doing so, became part of the dream itself. Let that image follow you now into stillness. Because sometimes, those who are exiled from history become its deepest roots. Most pyramids speak of finality, a completed story, a sealed tomb, a place where death rests and kings rise. But far from Giza, across the quiet hush of the Saqqara Desert, stands a different kind of pyramid. A step pyramid, one of the earliest kinds, weathered by time and wind, but still standing, and still waiting. Because this one was never finished. And no one knows why. The Pyramid of Sekhemkhet, as it came to be, called, rises not in triumph but in pause. Its steps do not reach completion. Its passageways trail off. Its inner chambers are open, half-formed, like thoughts abandoned mid-sentence. Inside, no sarcophagus, no hieroglyphs, no treasure, just stone, and silence, and tools. Copper chisels lie scattered on the floor. Baskets turned to dust sit where workers once rested. Blocks of limestone, still sharp-edged, lean against unfinished walls, as if the labourers stepped away and never returned. It is not a ruin in the usual sense. It is a moment, frozen, a beginning without an end. What happened? Sekhemkhet was a pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty, the successor to Djoser, whose own step pyramid became the blueprint for kings to come. Sekhemkhet, eager to match or exceed his predecessor, began a grand project just south of Saqqara. But it stalled, and then it stopped. Some say he died suddenly, that with his death, the project lost its patron and the workers were dismissed. Others believe economic troubles halted construction, a lack of resources or labour or royal will. But something about the site feels stranger than that. Because no burial chamber was ever used, because the sarcophagus found beneath the pyramid was still sealed, and when opened, it was empty. Not robbed, not looted, empty, as if no one ever intended to lie there, or as if something was taken before it was placed. The pyramid's corridors are different too, not long, ceremonial tunnels, but tight, twisting passages. Some scholars believe they were designed not for burial, but for containment, or perhaps for ritual that required movement through space in very precise ways. In one chamber, a small well-like shaft descends into a lower room. There's no clear purpose, no practical reason, and yet the stone is polished, deliberate. What was it meant to hold, and why was it abandoned? The air inside is cooler than expected. Still, too still. Even birds won't fly overhead. Local workers sometimes refuse to enter, not out of superstition, but out of a kind of respectful unease. One elder guide said simply, something told them to stop, and so they did. No records explain the halt, no decree, no tablet, no tale, just a pyramid left mid-breath, still inhaling stone, never exhaling glory. Maybe it wasn't meant to fail, maybe it was meant to remain unfinished. A message, a marker, a question carved into limestone. What do we leave undone? And what does it leave behind in us? Because there's something haunting in beginnings that never reach their end. A sense that perhaps they were never meant to. Perhaps some structures were meant to wait for another time, for other eyes, for a future understanding we do not yet have. Perhaps that's why the tools remain, not forgotten, just paused. Tonight, let yourself drift through those corridors, not afraid, just curious. Listen to the hush of labour that was once here. Feel the echo of hands shaping stone for reasons they may not have fully known. Let the unfinished guide you, because sometimes what we abandon still holds a piece of us, and sometimes a silence left behind speaks louder than any tomb. There are places on the map where the colour changes, not because the land is different, but because we've agreed not to look too closely. In the Western Desert, west of Dakhla and Karga, there is a stretch of land marked by the government as restricted, a no-entry zone, sand and silence. But high above, from the cold clarity of space, satellites saw something the wind could not hide. Lines, circles, grids, footprints, not of people, of plans, geometry etched into the desert floor. Shapes too precise to be natural, too faded to be modern, too deliberate to be dismissed. Some of the outlines appear as roads, straight as arrows, intersecting in patterns that resemble a circuit board more than a trail. Others form perfect squares, circles, even pentagons, stretching for miles, then suddenly vanishing beneath dunes. What built these and why here? No one can say for certain, because no one is officially allowed to go. Archaeologists peer from afar. Imagery is enhanced. LiDAR scans conducted quietly. Still, the details blur like a dream upon waking. But we know this. Whatever once stood there, it was enormous, and it was planned. Some believe these were lost cities, desert metropolises swallowed before history knew how to write them down. Others argue they were way stations, beacons for travellers whose routes are no longer charted. But some whisper something older. That the Western Desert, long before it dried, was a cradle, not empty, not peripheral, but central, to an Egypt before Egypt. There are records from the Old Kingdom, brief, cryptic, that speak of the places where the sand sings. Expeditions sent westward, never returning. Offerings left at the edge of the dunes, and always a warning: do not walk beyond the shadow of the fifth stone. What was the fifth stone? No one knows. But the coordinates match the forbidden grid, the place now visible only from space and barely at that. In recent years, a drone briefly flown near the perimeter captured footage of strange earthworks, ridges shaped like spirals, stone laid in concentric arcs, not fortresses, not fields, but perhaps foundations. One formation appears to mirror the constellation Cygnus, another, the path of the setting sun on the solstice. Coincidence, some say, but the lines are too straight, too clean. Someone once marked this land, not for farming, not for burial, but for remembering, and now we've forgotten. Or perhaps we were told to, because here's the truth, no one says aloud. Some places are called forbidden, not to protect us from danger, but to protect the past from our hands. Maybe this part of the desert holds a library, not of books, but of shapes, not of stories, but of structure. A language, built in sand, visible only to those who stop asking for translation. One researcher described the grid as a map not for the body, but for the mind. And perhaps that's why it still holds power. Because we don't understand it. Because it wasn't made for us, or not for the versions of us we are now. Tonight, close your eyes. Picture a place where no roads lead, but all roads begin. Picture footprints that last not because they're deep, but because they are meant to be found. Picture the sand shifting gently, revealing outlines that feel oddly familiar, like something you once saw in a dream, or a memory that isn't yours but fits you all the same. There are places that do not forget, even when we stop looking, and there are patterns in the world that remain, patient and unspoken, until someone, perhaps you, is quiet enough to listen. Sleep now beneath those ancient lines. Let them draw their slow circles through your thoughts. Let them lead you not away, but within. Because every footprint in the forbidden sand leads somewhere you already are. The Sphinx does not blink. She has watched the wind reshape the desert. She has watched the stars shift in the sky. She has watched men come with shovels, scrolls, and theories, and leave again, changed. She is not young. She may be older than the pyramids beside her, older than the gods who came after, older than the name she was given. But tonight, we do not ask who she is. We ask what lies beneath her, because for centuries, Rumours have curled like smoke around her stone pores, of chambers, of tunnels, of things sleeping in silence. No blueprints confirm it, no official map dares trace it, and yet seismic scans tell a different story. In the 1990s, scientists conducted a series of soundwave tests around the Sphinx's base. The readings revealed anomalies, rectangular cavities deep below, symmetrical and unmistakably man-made. One beneath the front paws, another behind the haunches, a third farther down, where no one expected solid earth to ring hollow. But excavation was denied. Permits refused. The claim labelled controversial, and still the whispers grew. Some say the chambers were sealed long ago, deliberately, that they contain records from a forgotten civilization far older than dynastic Egypt. A hall of knowledge, they call it, or a vault of star maps left by a race who understood the sky and stone as one breath. Others dismiss the idea as fantasy. The Sphinx is just a monument, a guardian, nothing more. But if so, why the tunnels? Old photographs from the 1800s show holes, access shafts, now filled in or obscured. Early travellers spoke of small doors. One explorer claimed to have descended into a tight passage beneath the chest, only to be pulled out and warned never to return. No proof remains, just silence. And then there are the scholars, the ones who ask too many questions. A few wrote papers, others gave quiet talks in universities, suggesting that Egypt's official chronology might be incomplete, that the weathering on the Sphinx's body, deep, rounded channels, looks more like rain than wind, heavy rain, from a climate that hasn't existed here in over 10,000 years. The claim was met with resistance, dismissal, funding withdrawn, and yet they persisted. Because science may seek certainty, but the desert lives on riddles, and the Sphinx is the queen of riddles. What creature walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night? The answer is man. But perhaps the riddle goes deeper. What structure sleeps in the sand by day, watches by dusk and remembers by starlight? The Sphinx too is a creature of time, carved from bedrock. She is not assembled, but revealed, shaped by removal, formed by patience. She faces east, always, toward the rising sun, toward Leo in the sky. A lion watching the lion, a stone echo of a celestial roar, and perhaps beneath her, that roar still hums. Perhaps the chambers beneath her paws are not tombs, but thresholds. Not crypts, but questions. One sealed room, one hollow beneath the left flank, a shaft that leads nowhere, or perhaps elsewhere. Why hide it? Why deny it? Unless what sleeps there is not meant for today. Some believe the chambers beneath the Sphinx hold not objects, but frequencies. A resonance chamber, a tuning structure, a key. To what? They don't say. Because some riddles are not solved with answers, but with stillness. Tonight, imagine yourself standing between those paws, the air cool, the moon high, your breath slowed to match the rhythm of stone. You press your palm to her flank and feel it, a faint vibration, beneath your skin, as if the Sphinx is not dead but dreaming, and beneath her, a whisper, too soft for the ear, but perfect for the soul. Let that whisper follow you now into your own sleep. Let it circle gently, not asking, not answering, just being, because sometimes, beneath the guardian's silence, what lies deepest is waiting for you. Some symbols belong in time. They carry the weight of centuries, rooted in ritual, framed by familiarity, and others drift in from somewhere else. In a red sandstone cliffside, far to the south, where the Nile bends toward Nubia and the riverbanks grow quiet, a carving was found. Not in a tomb, not in a temple, but high up, on a wall scorched by sun and silence, so high in fact that it was missed for generations. Only when drone footage swept the region for erosion patterns did it appear, faint stubborn, impossible. A glyph, or a figure, or a map, scholars still don't agree, because what it shows doesn't fit anywhere in the known Egyptian catalogue. It doesn't belong to any dynasty, any artistic tradition, any sacred symbology. It has wings, not the wings of Horus or Isis, broad and feathery. No, these are swept back, curved like a falcon mid-dive, engineered, taught, attached not to a being, but to a vessel with a tapered nose, a wide-bellied base, and beneath it, flame, or something like flame, not decorative, not metaphor, motion. It isn't large, perhaps the size of a hand, but the lines are etched with intention, sharp, precise, not the wandering scratch of a wanderer, not graffiti, but message. What does it mean? The cliffside it's carved into once stood near an ancient path, a trade route from Upper Egypt into Nubia, used long before the borders hardened. Some believe it was a sacred road, others say it was a place of exile. But the glyph sits far above where anyone would walk, placed not for passers-by, but for something looking down, or something meant to rise. Theories swirl like desert dust. Some claim it is a hoax, a modern intrusion, but the patina, the thin mineral layer that forms over centuries, is unbroken. The glyph has been there a long, long time. Others believe it depicts a mythical vehicle, perhaps from a tale now lost, a chariot of the gods or the sky bark spoken of in cryptic fragments. In the Book of the Dead, there are verses that mention Ra's journey not only across the sky, but through fire, through stars, through something more than heaven. One forgotten hymn speaks of the burning boat that sails in silence, whose wings are not feathers, but thought. Was this carving an echo of that line? Or was the hymn inspired by the image? No one knows, but the shape reappears, faintly, in one other place. A scarab amulet found in a tomb near Aswan, its underside etched with a symbol almost identical, but smaller, more abstract. It was dismissed at first, misinterpreted as a lotus or a bird in flight, but seen now in light of the cliff carving, it hums differently. It has become legend. Whispers speak of the firecraft, a device or god form that came once in ancient time, left knowledge and left. Not a ship, not a god, but something other. Too advanced for its era, too poetic for science, too structured for myth. Some call it the glyph of the impossible, others the mark of the visitor. But perhaps it is neither. Perhaps it is only what it appears to be, a question carved into stone. Not for worship, not for proof, but for memory. Something someone once saw and could not forget. And so they carved it. High, alone, exposed to wind and time. Because some visions ask not to be believed, only remembered. Tonight, picture yourself on that cliff, the rock warm beneath your fingers, the carving before you, strange, elegant, wordless. There are no guards here, no ropes, no labels, just the wind and the hush of awe. Let it remind you that not everything lost is gone, and not everything that doesn't fit is false. Some truths simply arrive before their time and wait for you to return. Most stories in Egypt look upward, toward light, toward Ra sailing across the sky in his golden boat, casting away darkness with the swing of morning. But not all gods rose, some fell. There is an older tale, not often carved, not found in temples but spoken in campfire hush, in villages near the western horizon, where the desert turns to stone and silence thickens like dusk. They speak of a sky god who was cast out, not punished but buried, not beneath ground in the usual way, horizontal, sealed in a tomb, but standing, as if watching, as if waiting to rise again. The tale has no name, no scroll preserves it fully, but pieces remain, a god with silver bones, eyes that saw not the sun, but what lay beyond it. He challenged Ra, not in battle, but in thought. He asked questions the sun would not answer. He reached not for light, but for truth, and for this he was cast down. The sky burned where he fell, and when he landed, the desert opened. Not with force, with acceptance, as if it too remembered him. He sank into the west, into the land where day dies, and was never seen again. But something remained, out past the Dakhla oasis, in places not marked on tourist maps, are mounds, not dunes, not hills, round, smooth, consistent, each the same height, each aligned with a star that no longer appears. Locals avoid them. They say the ground there is too warm, too still. Machines lose signal, compasses drift. Animals step around without knowing why. In one mound, a geologist once placed a metal probe. It stopped working within hours. He dug for half a day before hitting stone. Not bedrock, a surface, curved, polished, like a dome, like a shell. He left without finishing the hole. No excavation has been allowed since. But the legends grew. A burial, they say, not of a man, not of a king, but of a being who stood when others knelt, who remembered something older than the sun itself. In fragments of lost texts, there is mention of the distant one, not an enemy, not a devil, but a god whose presence was too large, whose truth was too heavy for the world to hold. One fragment reads, "He who walked the sky alone now watches beneath the west. His voice is the silence, his breath the heat. Some believe the mounds are monuments, others believe they are warnings, but maybe they are neither. Maybe they are simply rests, places where the forgotten is folded into the land. Not gone, just sleeping. Because the desert remembers. It does not need scripture. It keeps its own stories beneath layers of sand and starlight. And if you listen closely, in the heat that doesn't move, in the wind that doesn't blow, you can feel it. That something beneath you once stood tall, and still does, not dead, not buried, but waiting. Tonight, lie back. Picture the desert stretching beyond sight, the horizon glowing orange with secrets. And somewhere, beyond the reach of roads, a shape beneath the sand, upright, silent, whole. Let the thought comfort you, that even fallen gods are never truly lost, and even questions too large for light still glow in the dark. Not all of Egypt's sand is gold. In certain hidden hollows, along river bends, near cliffs that crack under sun, the sand turns black. Not dark brown, not grey, but true black. Rich with iron, dense, heavy, cool even beneath a burning sky. It shimmers unnaturally, smooth, almost oily in texture, and it stains the fingers. Locals avoid these places, not out of folklore, out of memory. They speak of the whispers, thin, sighing sounds that rise when no wind blows, a hum in the ear, a weight in the lungs, a stillness that presses inward, like a held breath. Shepherds change direction when nearing it. Children are told not to play there. Homes are never built close. Not anymore, because long ago they tried. Ruins remain near one such site, a half-finished stone dwelling, its foundation split by something deep. The walls are sunken, crooked, the well bone dry. Even the grass grows wrong there, curled, brittle, colourless. The village was abandoned before it was ever named, and in the years since, the place has become one of Egypt's ghost zones, marked on no official maps, mentioned in no guidebooks. But scientists have visited, quietly, carefully. They came with Geiger counters, with spectrometers, with ground-penetrating radar. What they found confused them. Radiation, trace levels higher than normal, not enough to burn, just enough to linger, to make electronics behave strangely, to make compasses drift, to make birds veer in strange loops overhead. One core sample, taken near Aswan, revealed sand mixed with glass, not from a kiln, but from intense heat. Heat beyond natural fire, heat that fuses desert grains into greenish translucent fragments, the kind of heat created by impact, or something else, something controlled, because there is no crater, no sign of explosion, only silence and a warning. In a crumbling temple far away, a priest once etched a short line into stone. Here the gods buried what could not die. Walk not where the sand sings. Another tablet, shattered and scattered, referenced the vein of the earth. A place where something pulsed, something sealed. Some think it refers to an old mining site. Others believe it marks a place where power was placed, not taken. A gate, a lock, a seal. And the black sand is not a consequence, but a barrier. Some desert mystics, the old ones, those who still chant at dawn with their palms pressed to the ground, say the black sand is sacred, that it's not cursed, but protective, that what lies beneath must never be uncovered, that the whispers are warnings, not hauntings, because something once rose here and was forced back down. No myth survives in full, but fragments repeat. A mouth that opened, a light that did not warm, a shape that moved without feet or wings, and then a closing, a seal, a silence. Tonight, lie still. Close your eyes. Imagine the desert under moonlight, smooth, dark, glimmering like quiet water. You walk its edge, your breath slowing, your skin brushing cool grains. You hear a hum, not loud, not frightening, just present, like a song sung in a language you almost remember. And then you stop. You do not cross. You let the black sand keep its story, because not everything hidden was meant to be found, and not all seals are broken by accident. Sleep now beside the border. Let the silence hold you. Let the warning become a lullaby. Let the black sand sing its ancient song without needing to be heard. Some objects are not made to be useful. They are made to be witnessed, or to witness you. It was found in a forgotten tomb, curled into the crook of a skeleton's arm. Not royal, not priestly, just someone long gone, buried with a strange kind of care. The tomb had no name, no carvings, just a shallow chamber, sealed in silence, in a necropolis no one remembered charting. Inside, a small bundle of linen still faintly fragrant, and within that, a mirror, but not like most. This one was made of obsidian, volcanic glass black as night, polished to a surface so perfect it caught even a flicker of candlelight. And yet, it did not reflect the person who held it. Not always. Sometimes it showed only the light, the flame, the outline of the room, but no face. Sometimes it showed something else entirely. A blurred silhouette, a shadow without source, a figure that vanished the moment one blinked. Those who held it reported a peculiar sensation, a stillness in the air, a pressure behind the eyes, as if the mirror was not showing them an image, but watching for one. Was it ceremonial? Possibly. The ancient Egyptians valued mirrors not only for appearance, but for soul work. They were gateways. They were companions for the journey through the duat, the underworld. To gaze into one was to glimpse the spirit, or the path ahead. But this mirror, this one refused to obey. It was set in a gold frame, inscribed not with names, but with small deliberate dots, like stars, or a code, or a pattern we no longer know how to read. When tested under light, its reflection bent subtly, not warped, not broken, just misaligned, as if it showed the world slightly elsewhere, slightly after or before. One scholar placed her hand in front of it and saw the fingers delayed by a breath, a tremor, a second self moving half a second behind. No mechanism, no illusion, just obsidian and something else. When the mirror was removed from the tomb, the temperature in the room dropped. Cameras flickered. Voices sounded slightly doubled on the recording. Coincidence, perhaps? But the team chose not to bring it into the lab. They left it in storage, covered, quiet. Even now, it sits in a museum archive, unlabeled, not on display. Its location known only to a few, because some believe it was not a mirror at all, but a memory, or a piece of something larger, something once whole, now scattered. In a forgotten folktale from the south, there is mention of the glass that drinks the face, a black surface that remembers every gaze, but returns none. It was said to whisper names to those who watched it too long. Names not their own, names from other times. The tale ends with silence, just like the tomb. Tonight, imagine this. You hold a mirror. You look into it and see the room, the walls, the candle behind you, but not yourself. And in that space where your face should be, there is stillness, not empty, not dark, just expectant, as if the mirror is waiting for who you will become or who you once were. Let that thought hold you now, like obsidian in linen, cool, smooth, unyielding. Let it reflect not your face but your breath, your pulse, your presence, and sleep, knowing that some mirrors do not show us who we are, but who we are meant to remember. In Egypt, death was meant to be eternal. Not just the body, but the place. The tomb was the anchor, the address of the afterlife. Names were carved, doors sealed, prayers etched in stone to last forever. But one pharaoh has no such place. He ruled, briefly, then vanished. No tomb, no mummy, no chamber sealed with his name. Only fragments remain. A scarab amulet, a carved throne fragment, a broken seal found beneath another pharaoh's burial chamber, buried in dust beneath a floor it should never have touched. His name is debated. It may have been Smenkhkare, or something we no longer remember. What we know is this: he reigned at the edge of Egypt's strangest time, between Akhenaten, the heretic king who worshipped the sun alone, and Tutankhamun, the boy who brought back the old gods. A hinge moment, a breach, and into that breach stepped a ruler who was later buried in the silence between lines of history. His face was never carved. His name appears in no known list, but his signature, faint and hurried, was found scratched into a piece of gold leaf in a workshop near Amarna. And then, nothing. The Valley of the Kings holds dozens of tombs, some grand, some modest, some empty, but none for him. And yet the broken seal, hidden beneath the foundation of another king's floor, was once his, cracked clean down the centre, stamped with a royal crest that doesn't match any other, as if it was meant to be hidden, as if someone built on top of him. Why, some say he was erased, his reign too short, his loyalties unclear, his identity too tangled in the religious chaos of the time. Others whisper he was merged, or his legacy folded into another, a shadow king, a placeholder. But a few believe something stranger, that he never died. Not in the usual way, that his tomb was never built because he never needed it, that he vanished because he was taken, or because he left. One inscription, buried deep in a collapsed temple near Abydos, speaks of a ruler whose feet left no dust, a king who rose by night and was not found at dawn. Is it poetry, or is it a clue? The scattered artifacts tell a story of someone in motion. A royal seal in a village far south, a ring in the delta found in a tomb that predates him, as if someone was collecting or scattering his legacy. And then there is the Ring of Stars, a carving on a ceiling fragment found near Luxor, depicts a pharaoh standing within a circle of 12 pointed stars. Above him, no cartouche, no gods, just flame, just silence, just a figure walking upward, and perhaps away. Tonight, lie still beneath your own sky. Picture the Valley of the Kings, rock dust tombs carved into the cliffside like hidden breaths. Now imagine one pharaoh who never entered that valley, who walked past it, beyond it, and kept going. His name lost, his tomb unbuilt, his memory scattered like ash on river wind. Was he erased, or did he choose silence? Let that question settle gently beside you. Because some stories are not buried, they're simply not yet told. And some kings are not crowned in stone, but in absence, and absence too can be eternal. We think we know what they meant. The crook, symbol of kingship, curved like the shepherd's staff to guide, to guard. The flail, its tail of beads or leather strips, to strike, to command. Together, they appear across Egypt's tombs, crossed on the chests of pharaohs, held aloft in temple reliefs, symbols of rule, of divine authority. We say they are ceremonial, but what if they were more? In recent decades, deep within buried temples beneath Saqqara and Luxor, scientists have found magnetic anomalies. Not strong, not consistent, but curious. Places where the compass spins slightly, where electric instruments falter, where stone that should be quiet hums. One chamber, hidden for centuries beneath a collapsed colonnade, revealed fragments of copper rods and stone tubes carved with helical grooves, like threads in a screw, but without purpose. At first dismissed, later reconsidered. Because alongside them, on a cracked limestone slab, was a faint carving of a pharaoh holding not just the crook and flail, but something else. A third object, long, cylindrical, tapered at one end and braced with bands. The hand position is different, not reverent, but intentional, as if to operate. Some researchers now believe the crook and flail may not have been just symbols, but tools, or remnants of something older, something once functional and later mythologized. In early dynastic tombs, the crook is often rendered in stone with carved lines radiating from its curve, like waves, not just decoration, but energy. And in certain temples, carvings show the crook being pressed against the foreheads of kneeling initiates, a blessing, or a kind of activation. The flail too has variations, some with copper beads, others with what appear to be metallic threads, inlaid in ceremonial gold. Too fragile for use, too specific to be only symbolic. Was it a conductor? A transmitter? Was something being done with sound, with light? In the temple of Hathor at Dendera, there is a famous relief, a bulb-like shape, inside of which a serpent rises, held by a figure with arms outstretched. Beneath it, a crook. Theories abound. Electricity, plasma, myth dressed in machinery. But beneath the temple, in chambers not open to the public, the stone feels different, cooler, charged, as if it remembers a function it no longer performs. There's no proof, of course, just alignments, just measurements, just questions. But the pattern repeats. Where crooks and flails are carved, strange resonance lingers. Not loud, not measurable, but felt. Some believe these were tools to guide not people, but frequencies, to conduct rituals of vibration, of tuning the self, of aligning body and temple to sky and earth. Not punishment, not ceremony, but operation. And over time, as knowledge faded, the tools became symbols, the function became form, the machine became myth. Tonight, lie still. Close your eyes. Picture a temple at dusk, stone walls humming gently, a priest king standing beneath a golden beam of sun. He holds the crook, not to rule, not to strike, but to listen, to align, to channel something the world no longer remembers. Feel that hum now, soft, patient, deep beneath your ribs. Somewhere in you, those tools are still turning, still working, still waiting to be remembered. Because not all power is loud, and not all machines are made of metal. Egypt did not end at the Nile. To the south, where the river narrows, where the sandstone turns darker, and the wind speaks in a different pitch, there was Nubia, a land of black stone and brighter gold, a place where kings were carved not from myth, but from defiance, where queens ruled alone, and temples whispered stories Egypt chose not to tell. We call it Kush now, or the Kingdom of Meroe, or simply the South. But to those who lived there, it was the mirror, not Egypt's shadow, its reflection, its equal, its rival, and in some ages, its conqueror. The pharaohs rarely wrote kindly of Nubia. When they did write, they called it the land of the bow, or the wild south. But stone tells another story. Because deep in the desert, beneath dunes that wander with the wind, there are pyramids, hundreds of them, slender, sharp, rising from red sand like black teeth in a sleeping jaw. They are smaller than Giza's, but they are more. and some once stood taller before time and sandstorms carved them down. Many belonged to the Candaces, queens of power and poise, who led armies, traded with Rome, and stared down the pharaohs with unblinking eyes. One such queen, Amanirenas, fought the Roman Empire to a standstill. Blinded in one eye, she struck back with fire and defiance, capturing Roman statues and burying them beneath temple floors, face down. Forgotten by history, but remembered by the desert. In the city of Meroe, long, abandoned carvings still show her standing beneath a crescent moon, holding a spear in one hand, a torch in the other. She was not myth, she was sovereign, and she was not alone. The Nubians had writing, they had metallurgy, they had trade routes that reached deep into Africa, beyond Egypt's reach, but most of their language remains undeciphered. We can see it, we can touch it, but we cannot yet read it. Their stories remain folded, like letters in a script we no longer know how to sound. What we do know is this: they built pyramids on different stars. They aligned temples with southern winds. They buried their rulers with silver and song. And when Egypt fell to outside powers, Kush endured. For a while. Then came time, and silence, and sand. The pyramids at Nuri and El Kuru were swallowed. Temples collapsed, inscriptions weathered to breathless curves. But the bones remain. In one burial, a queen lay with a mirror beside her, a bow across her chest, and a crown of iron, rusted but unbroken. Around her, nothing written, but everything known. And deep beneath the pyramid's base, a sealed chamber. Never opened, still humming faintly, some say, when the wind moves right. Archaeologists call it a tomb. Others say it's a library, or a vault, or simply a heart. Because when you walk among the Nubian pyramids, there is a rhythm beneath your feet, a pulse, a story trying to rise again. Tonight, imagine standing at the edge of the kingdom. The sand is darker here, cooler, quieter. You run your hand along black stone. It's smooth, sharp, pointed to the stars no longer visible in the sky. And beneath you, queens and kings wait, not for resurrection, not for worship, just to be remembered. Let them rise gently in your mind. Let them walk again, draped in red linen, eyes painted with stories you cannot read, but understand. Because history is not always written by the victors. Sometimes it's whispered from below. And sometimes what rises from Nubia's edge shines longer than gold. Near the edge of Dakhla Oasis, where the cliffs rise in soft arcs like a sleeping wave, a shepherd stopped to rest. His goats wandered nearby, his hands dusty from stone. He leaned against the rock and felt air, not the wind, not a breeze, but something subtle, cool and steady, slipping from a crack in the cliff that hadn't been there before. A storm had passed days earlier. Rain, rare but real, had loosened stone. And what it revealed was a door, not carved, not grand, just a narrow fissure, and beyond it, a room. When researchers returned days later, they found it untouched. No footprints, no tools, no animals, just silence and the smell of old cedar. Inside, a sealed cave, still, dry and impossibly preserved, and within it, objects placed with care, not as offerings, not as ritual, but as reminders. A leather pouch, still supple, tied with sinew. Inside, scrolls, not papyrus, not linen, but tanned leather, etched with a script that did not match dynastic hands. The symbols were curved, interwoven, like constellations drawn on skin. Alongside them, a wooden star map. Simple, circular, marked with dots, lines, and faint grooves. It turned on a central axis, like a compass, but pointed not north, but up. The stars it charted were not the ones above us now. They belonged to a sky thousands of years ago, a sky that has since drifted, spun slowly away, forgotten. And beside the map, a bowl filled with seeds, grains not native to the area, some still intact, some fossilized into smooth dry pearls, a mixture of survival and message. Because this was not a tomb, not a burial, not even a temple. This was a capsule, Not meant for gods, meant for someone. Left by a hand long gone, for a hand yet to come. And perhaps that someone is us, a time capsule hidden in stone, beneath cliff, beneath sky, beneath the shuffle of centuries. There was no name left, no royal mark, but on the inner wall, drawn in ink made from ash and oil, a single phrase repeated, "If you have found this, then time is not lost." No treasure, no spell. Just the memory of a moment sealed tight, given forward. Why was it hidden? Perhaps the one who placed it there knew forgetting would come, knew that fire, flood, or conquest would take the temples, the cities, the names, but not this. This they protected with stone, with silence, with patience. And now it has been opened, studied, handled with gloved hands, scanned, preserved, but also listened to, because the scrolls speak of alignment, of waiting, of the moment when stars would again take their places and the seed would grow, as if history is a season, a cycle, a garden, as if this isn't the end of the story, but its return. Tonight, close your eyes. Picture a cliff beneath a pink horizon, a narrow cave, a hollow of still air, inside a pouch, a bowl, a map, each left behind with the gentleness of hope. Not shouting, not commanding, just saying, "We were here, we remembered you. Did you remember us?" And now, you do. Let that thought settle with you. Let it root. Let it bloom slowly, like a seed held in darkness for thousands of years, and now seeing the light. Because perhaps this story was always yours, and perhaps you were always meant to find it. Some secrets do not ask to be revealed. They wait, not with urgency, not with fear, but with trust, because they know that truth is not always a thing to be found. Sometimes it's a thing to be felt. Here in the emptiest desert, beyond the last markers on maps, beyond where roads thin into dust and memory, there is a silence that folds around the heart. Not lonely, not blank, just present. And in that silence, the sand listens. It does not move fast. It does not forget quickly. It remembers footsteps. It remembers breath. It remembers what was laid down before names were carved into stone. It kept Egypt's secrets, not by hiding them, but by holding them. Not erasure, protection. In places where no temple stood, no monument rose, still the sand remembers. It holds the outline of dwellings long vanished, the pressure of bodies laid gently beneath the sky, the grooves left by hands shaping pottery, planting seeds, writing prayers in the air. It even remembers what never came to be. The plans abandoned, the dreams interrupted, the words never spoken, all of it folded quietly into the dunes. In the north wind's breath there is a language. It's not spoken, it's felt in the bones. The hush between grains, the pause between histories. It is there that Egypt begins again. Not in tombs, not in gold, not in names chiseled deep, but in silence. The kind of silence that waits not to be understood, but simply honoured. As we reach the final edge of this long journey, let us return not to the cities or the pharaohs, or the fire-lit stories carved in stone. Let us return to the sand, to where the first question rose, to where the wind passed over something ancient and did not disturb it. Because some secrets choose their keepers, and sometimes those keepers are not kings, or scholars, or gods. Sometimes they are deserts, they are dunes, they are silence wrapped in sunlight. Tonight, as you breathe slow and deep, picture that sand. Unbroken, patient, endless. Let it stretch around you. Let it hold you. Let it hum with the stories it never told, because it trusted someone would come not to take but to listen. And now you have. Let this be the final gift. That what is buried is not always lost, that silence can be sacred, and that Egypt, the Egypt beneath the sand, has been waiting for you all along. Sleep now, in a hush so deep it feels like dreaming, and let the wind turn one more page,